Hey guys, welcome back to Stay Unqualified. This is John and Anam, and today we are talking about community. We have been going through the 7 Circles for Saints model. This is a model that was put on John's heart earlier this year. This is the model that we're using at our church. And in this episode, we're talking about that 4th circle. But just to give a quick recap on the first 3 circles, the first circle was the divide, which is basically talking about the sinful state of the world, how sin came into the world, and just what it has been doing or what it does. And then the second circle is called the wound, and that is basically how sin impacts us. How our sins, impact us, other people's sins, and then just the spiritual warfare that's been going on in the world. And then the third circle is self-care. So that's basically like, God is asking us to take care of ourselves, to take care of these basic needs, just nourishment, water, sleep, all this other stuff, but other stuff too, like, getting the help that we need, the mental help and emotional support, whatever it may be, to make sure that we are ourselves doing well, right? And now we're in the 4th circle. So do you want to give kind of a quick synopsis on that?
Yeah, for sure. So, the way that I saw it was essentially the care is good because you're taking care of yourself. You're meeting all the different needs that you can, at least as an individual, with God, right?
Yep.
But the circle, which is essentially community,
Yep.
is the next step. So, I mean, think about it. If you were asked to push a boulder, could you? Likely not.
Yeah.
But with a team of people, you can. Often I see when people are like stuck on the side of the road, it doesn't only always at least take enough like one individual to push the car
Yeah.
to the side. We get a couple of people.
Yeah.
One steering, 2 are usually or 3 are usually behind, right? And essentially that's what I see community as.
Yeah.
Those bigger boulders in life, kind of like what you referred to in our previous episode, are the things that we need help on.
Yeah.
And when I think of the circle, it's a challenging, kind of complicated topic. And honestly, like I straight up thought, oh, cake. Like we're just gonna talk about like how we connect. I'm really relational. I really love to meet people, but there is this aspect of community that I couldn't wrap my mind around. And like I mentioned, like every single week when I have to preach or talk about something that God has put on my heart, I often experience it in real time. And one of the major aspects of the circle, the community, right, is the prioritization of it. In other words, setting aside enough time to prioritize those people who you consider to be your closest, right? Or even your second closest or third.
Yeah.
So in essence, what the circle is your life support.
Yeah.
They are the people who actually help you make sure that you are also caring for yourself. When you might find yourself in an isolated state, they're the type of people who hit you up and be like, yo, you've been silent for way too long. What's going on? And they'll pull you out of situations that you yourself can't necessarily get yourself out of.
Yeah. And I think that, we're not meant for isolation. And I think in the I don't know, society we live in now, like the culture we live in now, it kind of prizes isolation.
It can, yeah.
Sometimes I think we honestly we all feel really isolated, especially because we live in a world where there's just technology everywhere. We're kind of like glued to our phones or glued to our laptop or TV. Like we are less social as people now.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, there's more for us to like tap out into
Yeah.
than there was prior. Like you didn't have all these means of let's say fantasizing into like living your, I don't know, best life through some other means.
Or getting your social needs met through
Yeah.
social media, through Netflix, through whatever it may be, watching sports, like, binge watching sports or whatever it may be. God made us to have a social desire. Like we were meant to be social beings. We were meant to do life together,
Yeah.
not just in marriage, but with friends and family.
Yeah.
And when you lose that, I mean, you don't have those friends checking in on you and you're not checking in on friends. There's no accountability. And then it kind of like, you kind of lose that fabric of society of like everyone kind of like taking care of each other.
Yeah. I think honestly, that kind of brings me straight up into a couple of different biblical ideas, but before I jump into that, I wanted to pause and just reflect on something that happened this week to me that made me kind of reconsider some of the reasons. Like, basically, I paused and reflected, like, am I living the style of community in the style of community that I would want for myself, or even wish upon anybody else, or even like I often even say that I have. Like, am I living out what I say that I have or that I think that I have? And the honest answer was no, because the hurriedness of life can often strip you away from all the beautiful things. And phrases like stop to smell the roses, right? They're there for a reason. It's to imply, like, take it slow, take your time, be mindful, and acknowledge those little moments. And so, unfortunately for me and my family, and especially my dad, he, I feel convicted to share this with you. Otherwise, I wouldn't necessarily. Um, he wound up going to the hospital for a certain situation, and it kind of broke me because I was like you live far, or far enough that it's challenging for me to get to you. And I live in such a lifestyle that's so demanding
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes it's hard to break away from it all
Yeah.
and make that time, right? And so I've expressed this prior, I don't know in what episode, but basically I knew that when I stepped out of church, and I had a long season of just kind of selfishness, like self-centeredness. And in that time, I didn't fully acknowledge how much my parents meant to me. And then when I started to wake up to it, wake up to the fact that, oh man, they mean the world to me, it was already in my mind a little too late, because now I'm living in a different apartment. And then shortly thereafter, I moved to a completely different state. And it started to hit me like, yo, you spent 10, 12 years of your life neglecting them. And it hurt because I didn't prioritize them. I
Yeah.
didn't, like, I was really caught up in my own, ideals, my goals, my objectives. And I thought that that would bring me happiness. And the reality of it is, it actually brought me nothing but sorrow, because I wasn't able to share some of those things with them. It was always just about myself.
Yeah.
And this week was a microcosm of that. It kind of pointed out the fact that when he went to the hospital, I was just like, what have I been doing for the last 8 to 9 months? Have I truly been slowing down enough to spend quality time with him? Because what if this is it? Like, what if I don't get the chance to, like, spend any more time with him? And I'm saying this from a more sober place now.
Mm.
Emotionally, it wrecked me over the week, but it still is actually challenging, because it pressed me to ask myself, what are you going to change?
Yeah.
Right? And the variable that I think can often matter in the midst of relationships is, are you making the time for the people who you say matter the most to you? Or are you career driven? Are
Mm.
you academically driven? Are you into this hustle culture mentality where often you think you're doing it for the people that you love the most, but then you realize that you're leaving them on the back burner,
Mm.
and you start to make justifications that you're doing this for them, but the reality is they're nowhere in sight. They're unhappy. They feel disconnected from you, or they even feel like you've abandoned them.
Yeah.
And so that reality slapped me in the face, and it just kind of pushed me to realize, hey, slow down, create that close circle. And we're going to be talking about this shortly, but we speak about the three, or, a couple of people in your life who made a major impact, kind of like Jesus had his
Mm-hmm.
three disciples, right? And then the 12 people who, spur you on, and they're right alongside you, and they're a blessing to be with. And then the 70 people who, in a similar vein, they share a ministry with you. They share similar beliefs and even ideas with you. And they're there to encourage you in different moments, and how necessary it is to be able to allocate who those people are.
Yeah.
So that when you're living your life, you're not mixed up in, like, this idea of I'll always have them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the time hits, you know, you don't.
And one thing I want to add is that in the last 8 months, you weren't career driven in it's still, without realizing, it was self-centered,
Mm-hmm.
but not self-centered in how we see it. Self-centered is like you really want it so badly,
Yeah, no.
and you want it to accomplish it so badly, so you kind of just, put other things on the back burner. That's not what this was. This was um for us to transition into, the last 8 months of, into ministry where we're doing it actively, right? In a church, it's been painful.
Mm.
And so sometimes that pain forces you to, it motivates you to just get things done because you want the pain to end.
Mm.
And so because of that, it's been like you couldn't necessarily focus on or prioritize the people, like your family or like some key friends or whatever it may be. Um, Again, not because of selfish ambition, but it's still self-centered and it's still ambitious to want the pain to end so that
Yeah.
you kind of just keep, you know, um, like just focusing on work. But then the other thing I wanted to say was like, we were both sharing these very similar ideologies and kind of like, ever since moving here, we've both been like we both believe that God brought us out here, out of New York. But then at the same time, there's just this sadness about leaving our families,
Mm-hmm.
about leaving the people we knew in New York, about leaving friends even,
Mm-hmm.
right? And God, you see God do that in the Bible a bunch of times. God calls people out of the land that they were born in, the land that, their family held and everything. Um and it's bittersweet because it's like we've seen ourselves grow. It's forced us to, it's like, grow spiritually. It's forced us to depend on God,
Mm.
like, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like we are still learning how to, keep up with the people that we genuinely do care about.
Yeah.
When life gets really hard, it's like you're just focused on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And then it's hard in the world that we live in. Like, I think it's easier now. I don't know how people did it without phones. Like, I don't know how people waited for letters for months. But like, it's like you would think it's easier because we have a phone. You could easily FaceTime or video call or text or whatever it may be, but it's like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then this week was kind of like, let's take a lot of steps back and reevaluate how are we living our lives, where the community that we said is our core community,
Yeah.
is it not our core community? Are we lying to ourselves because we're not acting like it's our core community? We're acting like, we were telling ourselves that, but our actions don't follow that. So even though this week has been really difficult, to me it's also kind of like a blessing in disguise in terms of God's like, all right, reevaluate.
Yeah.
And you're right, every time you preach a sermon, you have to, like, we live it out. And it's, to me, I'm just kind of tired of it because I'm just like, oh, I hope he doesn't, like, God doesn't have him speak about something crazy because I cannot. But
Apocalypse.
no.
Kidding.
But I think it is very, it's hard to talk about something that you haven't experienced pain in and joy in, right? And we've experienced pain and joy in community,
Yeah.
in our core community, in the 12, in the 70, whatever it may be. And I think God is telling us, like, guys, like, yes, I called you to this ministry, I called you to all these things, but like, you need to not just take care of yourself, because like it's slowing down. Like, the whole point of the care one last week was slow down so you can take care of yourself. And now it's like slow down so you can connect with the people who are going to encourage you in your faith journey, and you're going to encourage them. And then, like, that love that you guys have for each other, that will grow you guys. And I think that's what we need to focus on, because through that love, we say to ourselves, our marriage is kind of like that motivating factor for us to do ministry. Out of our marriage is where our ministry comes from.
Yeah.
And if our marriage isn't necessarily thriving, like, yes, there are ups and downs, but if it's not something that we're taking very seriously, like, we're going to slow down for our marriage, then our ministry, whatever it is, it's going to not be good. It's going to fail. And we could put up a facade, you know
And that.
and whatever, but
Mhm.
it's still like that's not what God wants. And so it's the same thing through the love that you have for your people, for your parents, your family, your best friends, your really close relationships. Through that love and engagement is when you can do ministry as well. When you can, talk about the love of God as well. And I think we have to constantly remind ourselves of that.
100%. You hit on a lot of different points that are really good. Something that I wanted to hone in on is the idea of the survival mode.
Mm,
Like just to keep it a buck, I feel like every young adult and adult, when they hit like that place where they're out in the world, right? It can be very easy, even as a teen, I'm not gonna lie, like to focus on survival.
yeah.
But you have to pay bills now. I
Yep.
mean, you have to go to work regularly. You have to manage your time well. You have to be a good steward of your finances. So many things come out of left field. When you're a kid, you're chilling. You're like, oh my God, I'm gonna have all this time for for
Yeah.
relationships. It's always gonna be this way. And then when reality hits you, right,
Yep.
you're unprepared because you're
Yep.
like, wait, I thought I would always have my parents. I thought they would always be young. I thought that they would always be with me.
Yeah.
And it is very earth shattering to find out the truth.
Yeah.
Praise God that there is life in Christ, right? There is a life lived even after this world, and we can find just excitement and comfort and counsel in that, because otherwise I just wouldn't know how to operate, honestly. But that survival mode is very pressing. And what it made me think of, honestly, was David, specifically because this man was getting hunted 24/7. Whether it be by, I don't think a lion or a bear were hunting him. I'm not sure what was happening in that dynamic. But with King Saul, he was under consistent stress and pressure of um just outbursts,
Mhm.
right? And as you were speaking, I was like, wow, so like God equipped him with the right type of people,
Yep.
Jonathan,
Yep.
so that in the midst of it all, he wouldn't grow weary or discouraged, or
Yep.
even if he did, he had that person to back him up,
Yep.
to literally be there in the hardest times. And then we think about like Jeremiah and what was his name again?
Baruch,
Baruch. Yeah, Baruch, right?
something like that, or UQ,
Okay.
or Barak. I don't know.
But essentially, Jeremiah, considered the weeping prophet, right? Nobody wanted to hear him out. He thought many times that God had abandoned him, and God had allowed for Baruch to be there as a means of like um, support,
Yep.
livelihood, counsel, just to let him know he's not alone.
Yeah.
And lastly, last week we were speaking about Elijah,
Mm-hmm.
right, in regards to care,
Yep.
because God came down, or God sent his angel, right? To be able to support him. But it didn't stop at that. He sent many other individuals, and we're going to talk about that. He sent one in particular to be able to support him, to be able to push that boulder together.
Yeah.
So in the midst of what we consider survival mode out here, God does not leave us unequipped without the people that we need. Are we prioritizing that? I'm not sure. But it's interesting to me to know that in the midst of a performative lifestyle, you would think that you would feel accomplished.
Yeah.
And I was sitting, I forgot where I was. I think it was today. Oh, I think I either went to the mechanic or something, but like, oh no, no, I went to AutoZone for a second to just get an oil filter or whatever. And when I was there, I heard over the radio, like, I forgot who it was. Maybe some dude from Shark Tank. He was explaining like money. So in other words, success, it will make you more of what you currently are. So he was like, if you're happy, you will be maybe happier. But if you already have like a character that is, let's call it complicated, you will be more complicated.
Yeah.
If you're depressed, you might think that that would fix it all, but in fact, it actually doesn't. And when we go to some other countries that don't have that, they find joy in spending quality time together with one another. So measuring joy should not come through this performative, like what more I think Western ideal of moving forward in life. It's really slowing down
Mm-hmm.
so that we can spend quality time with the people around us. And even like Peter Scazzaro says, it's weird how he says it this way, but he says slow down so we could catch up to Christ or to
Mm-hmm.
God or to Jesus.
And what I wanted to add was that when you talked about David and how he had all of these really close friends who were going to help him, who were basically like protecting him from King Saul, those were the same group of men, I believe, when he became king. Like they became like the closest people to him in terms of like his, I don't know what you want to call like his army or his team or whatever, right? And it's like once he isolated himself from that, he like went into this deepest, darkest sins ever.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like that's what happens when you isolate yourself from community.
Yeah.
Community is supposed to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
It's supposed to encourage you regarding your faith.
100%.
It's supposed to, just remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. It's supposed to remind you of the mission and the beliefs that we all have. But when you separate yourself more and more and more because there's something else to do here, or I gotta keep working, or I gotta do this, or I gotta study here, it's like it, you're always gonna like. It sounds crazy. You're always gonna have time to study more, to work more, to exercise more, to like clean more. I don't know what it is, but those times that you have with those people, that is limited. You're
precious.
right. That's super limited. And so prioritize that too. And it's a balance to do all of that. So like figure out that balance.
Yeah.
But what we wanted to talk about was just some of the stories in the Bible where like you see community, where you see God endorsing community, where you see God giving community, and how we as a church, like capital C church in the world, like how we should be in community with each other. So the first one I want to talk about is from Acts 2, and it's between 42 and 47. And Luke uses this word for community, which is called, I forgot,
Koinonia.
koinonia.
Yeah.
Which is basically Greek for fellowship or community. And when he goes into that, he's basically saying that like it's kind of like a standard for all churches now. Like a lot of churches use this as a standard, but the whole point of it is that like we're supposed to be in unity. We're supposed to be willing to share with one another. We're supposed to be open towards people. We're supposed to be breaking bread with each other. We're supposed to be praying for each other, strengthening each other.
Yeah.
We're supposed to, and you were talking about this earlier, but like showing up as is, like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like that's what community is. It's like show up as you are. Like let's talk about it. What's going on? Let me pray for you. What else is going on? Let me celebrate with you. But like I think you said this, like we don't do that as a church anymore.
Yeah. I think it's so easy to get caught up in like the performative aspects of church, which is like, okay, so you pop in 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or 3 days a week. Okay. I would even recommend that 3 days or more is good. But I think that when you regularly hang out with somebody like on a day-to-day basis, what happens? You see everything. You can't hide. Like I used to sleep over my friend's house all the time, like several of my friends' houses.
Yeah.
And it's like wake up. Oh, that's what you look like waking up. Cool. Go fix that. Kidding. But the idea is literally like I get to see the most vulnerable pieces of you. And it reminds me of one of my friends who mentioned like it's like the innermost part of the sanctuary.
Yeah.
You don't get to that space without intentional like intentionally choosing to go to that place. That's not just a space that's available for anybody else. You don't necessarily work towards it per se, but more so you allow your own vulnerability to be seen, and then as you transition through the sanctuary, right, you get to that place.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's always what the church feels like.
Yeah. And like, and we're going to talk about a model where people can understand like, okay, church and then like a group of friends and then close friends. So like not to say go to church every single day, but like you should be in some type of community every single day, whether it's a broader community, a smaller community, or you're like your core group of your community.
Yeah.
Right. But something that you're doing every day where you're checking in with somebody, you're hanging out with somebody, you're praying with somebody,
Yeah.
regardless of what like intimacy or vulnerability level you're at with them.
Yes. And if you don't mind me sharing, one thing that you brought up from your childhood honestly was inspiring to me. Was the fact that you went to the mosque
Every
daily.
day.
Yeah.
Because that's for Muslims, like especially when you're growing up, like you have to learn the Quran. So for me, I went Monday through Friday and then Sunday school to learn, like it's just Islamic school.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, it was just a very active part of my life. I
Yeah.
even had my imam come to our house very frequently. It's a very close-knit community, and it's also based off of communal values.
Yeah.
So like I come from an Eastern culture, so like we're very community oriented. We're very about honoring the community, honoring the family over the individual.
Yeah.
So and we have to all kind of understand too, like the Bible, the setting of the Bible's in that too. It's a communal setting. Jesus, he's in a communal setting. He's in a communal culture. So I think our perspective of community is so different from the perspective of what Jesus went through, and from the perspective of other people who don't necessarily live in like the Western world or whatever, like in America, let's say, where individualism is kind of just the dominant culture.
Yeah.
Thinking for the community, making decisions on behalf of the community, to save the community is something that we don't do.
Yeah.
We make decisions based off of just our individual selves.
Yeah, and
That
obviously there's people who do still think that way
yeah,
within like the Western atmosphere, but like you're right, for the majority part, even myself growing up, like that's why I lost 10 to
yeah,
12 years of my time with my dad because I was too concerned on how I could get up in life.
yeah. And then there's it's extremes in both.
Yeah.
So you have to try to find for yourselves like the good of being in an individualistic society and the good of being in a communal society, and figure out what values, kind of like what values you want to have, what values even just Jesus have that you want to emulate in your walk with God and in your walk with your faith community as well.
Yeah.
So the second story we want to talk about, and this is going to be super quick because we talked about Elijah last week. But First Kings 19 is basically when Elijah runs into the wilderness, and he isolates himself. He
Yeah.
feels alone, and then asks God to take his life.
Yeah.
That's what isolation does, not solitude, because we did talk about that with Corey in a podcast episode. Solitude with God is good. Isolation is not. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
So God has him focus on self-care by giving him food, water, rest, and also just having like, a relationship with God. Because you were talking about angel of the Lord, that's God himself coming down and just encouraging him, right? And so that is what that care aspect of the seven circles for saints model is about, is take care of your basic needs,
Yeah.
what you need to just feel decent, to kind of get that motivation to even live back up and have that relationship with God,
Yeah.
right? And then what happens next?
So later in the chapter, basically, Elisha is given over to him in a sense, right? In the sense that he now has a companion. He no longer has to take on the boulder that is being the prophet. He literally is able to pass the baton forward. He's done his service, his time. He's fought a good fight, right? But at this point, he's worn out, he's overwhelmed, and God is like, "Oh, don't you sweat it. I got people in line to take care of everything that you're fearful of." And then, and seeing that, I was just like, "Wow, that's incredible!" Like God is so intentional about making sure that we're not alone. And when the Bible states that it is not good for man to be alone, right? Obviously, that's within the context of marriage, right? But what's interesting to me is that this replenishes
Yeah.
Elijah. This gives him hope.
Yeah.
And not only does he have Elisha and the couple others that he mentioned that would back him up, right? Like a close knit circle, like the three that we mentioned or whatever. He has 7,000 others who have not bowed to Baal. And it says it here. So I believe it's verse 19. Chapter 19, verse 18. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal and whose mouths have not kissed him. So like he's saying, yo, you thought you were alone in this struggle. And how many of us really feel that way sometimes? We're like locked up in our crib or even in our room,
Yep.
and we feel like it's just me. It's Netflix. That's how I'm gonna get through this.
Yeah.
It's me and coping. It's me and junk food. It's me and myself and I. And I used to honestly love that ideology.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very strong.
Yeah.
It felt like, oh, I'm resilient. Oh, I'm a tough
Yeah.
cookie, whatever. I don't know. Um, and the reality is, you know, somebody told me the other day, like, yo, I see what you're doing at your church. I see how vulnerable you're being, and some people may I guess come off as if though they got it all made and they got it all figured out. And they're tough, but it's a facade. And when I heard that, that was a crazy affirmation because I was just like, you know, sometimes, Lord, I feel like I'm being too vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared
Mm-hmm.
because this wasn't me. I
Yeah.
used to hide behind the facade.
Yeah.
I used to hide behind the appeal or the idea of um stoicism, maybe. I don't know what to call it, but it was just like, I got it. I don't need your help.
Yep.
Don't bother me. I was that person. And to come to this place where it's like, I'm lonely, I'm sad, I need prayer because I need prayer.
Yeah.
It's like it's so different. But I was reading something in the devotional this morning, specifically speaking about this, and it was like when you taste that sense of not only community but like the Lord's hand in your life. Oh no, it wasn't even the devotional. It was Peter Scazzaro specifically speaking on his podcast about community and rest and things of that nature. You never want to go back because then
Mm-hmm.
you realize, what was I was tripping. Like I thought this was the good life, and then I tasted what it is to have people have your back, and I'm like, no, why would I ever want to
Yeah.
be alone again? And it reminds me of this last idea. I'm gonna butcher this, so forgive me in advance. But I was watching this documentary with you, called the Blue Zones,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was on Netflix, and it was talking about I believe they're called Okinawans in Japan, and they've gone through a lot of difficulty in their lives. But one thing that they've adopted is something called a samoy. And you mentioned that your parents also have like a version, or your mom has a version of this. Originally, it was made to be this idea of financial support amongst, you know, different. I don't know if it was only women, but this is what they were highlighting in this specific episode. A group of women there to not only financially support it, elevated or escalated into spiritual support,
Mm-hmm.
emotional support, physical support. Because one of the people who was getting interviewed, her husband died 40 something years ago.
Oh wow.
And so she had this close knit group of people, right? 4 or 5 ladies who at the age of like 10 or lower made uh I guess kind of it almost feels like um a pack.
Mm-hmm.
They made a pact to be there for one another,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're all over 100.
Mm.
And one of the lines that they said was like, it's nice to not stress, and when you don't have that stress in your life, you like just naturally live longer, because you have that sense of support. And I thought, man, they I guess exemplify what the church should,
Mm-hmm.
right? It happens to be that like there's other people who are um Christian in the world, right? Who actually lived out those principles as well, um, and and they come into close connectivity or connection weekly, daily, even, and so they have that same idea of like being a centurion
Mm-hmm.
or a centurion, living over 100 years, and it's really wrapped up in the idea of I got community, I don't
Mm-hmm.
gotta sweat it,
Yeah.
um, and it kind of reminds me of this last thing with Triply and I forgot who else, but there's this song that I constantly play on repeat, and I used to play it way too much, and then it died a little bit in me, and I was just like, okay, I need to. But it's he said this line like, "My team has my back like they're behind me,"
Mm-hmm.
and that is the best hype song. But it gives you the courage to move forward, is what I'm trying to say.
And I guess that that story of the Okinawans reminds me of this verse in Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, which says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor.
Mm,
If either of them falls down, one can help the other up.
yeah.
But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up."
Yeah.
And that's just about just having companionship. Like Elijah, God gave Elisha
Mm-hmm.
as a companion
Mm-hmm.
in his ministry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then so those Okinawans have companions in their lives, and they have someone that they know they can rely on when times get tough, or they have people they can celebrate, joyous moments with, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what God wants us to know, is that it's not just marriage. You have to have companionship, regardless if you're married or not.
Yeah.
Marriage isn't the only companionship that God has given that's going to be a blessing.
Mm-mm.
Each companionship is different. It gets blessed differently. Having family, parents, siblings, friends, things like that.
Yeah.
Those are companions that we can rely on.
Yeah.
And what it reminds me of too is, like, when I was thinking about this episode in Community, I thought about the example of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego,
Mm.
and how I wonder if they were able to, do like kind of like have courage with their faith the way that they did if they didn't have each other.
Mm.
Like, could one of them do it alone? I know God can do a lot through people, but
No,
why did God need three of them? Why did God use three of them?
that's very true. I think that it kind of, and not only did he have three of them, but then like showing up himself in the midst of the furnace is like, wow, you have strength in numbers sometimes. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have 12 spies and two of them are the only ones actually doing
But that's still community.
that is, yes. But in the idea of strength in numbers, maybe he did choose them to
Yeah.
rely on one another. And in the same way that you mentioned, like the Okinawans actually, like as I was reading more about that specific documentary that was made, they specifically said like, yeah, it doesn't take marriage to
Yeah, because that lady was like, her husband had passed away 40 something years ago, and she hadn't gotten remarried.
no.
She's just with her friends,
Yeah.
who's checking in on her,
All the
and
time.
she's
Yeah.
checking in on them.
Yep. Tea, chill. It's I think it's a good cycle.
Yeah. So I guess to wrap it up, we want to focus on Jesus' community.
Mm,
Obviously, Jesus went into solitude with his Father.
yeah.
But then he had different levels of community that we want to really emphasize. There's going to be different levels of community that you have.
Mhm,
So Jesus had his 3, his 12, and his 70 or so, whatever
mhm,
you want to call that. And his 3 were Peter, James, and John.
mhm,
And when I was looking into this, is that Peter, James, and John were the ones who saw him at his best, the
mhm,
transfiguration, and then saw him at his worst in Gethsemane.
mhm,
And that was during his lifetime type of thing.
mhm.
And obviously the crucifixion and everything, but like, as in, like, he kind of took them out of the 12 and said, I want you guys to be here in this part of
I
my
want you to be here.
journey in my life.
Mm,
Jesus chose them. And so, like, I think the 3, and I don't know if it has to be 3, it could be 4, maybe it could even be 5, I don't know.
I don't know, bro.
But you need to have your core group
Yeah.
who know you so intimately, and you're able to be vulnerable with them, and it's such a safe space that you can connect with them, and it just feels like you could just rely on
It's just
them.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And they've seen you at your worst, and they've seen you at your best, and these are the people who will celebrate your wins and be with you in your hardest moments, and vice versa. You will be there for them in their wins and their hardest moments.
Yeah.
But these are the people that you have to connect to the most.
Regularly. And oh man, that's the point that I definitely didn't want to forget. So there's different levels of intimacy with each of them.
Yep.
And it made me think
Different levels between each of, like, the groups.
yes.
Yeah.
So like for instance, the 70 to me sometimes can feel like, and you brought this up, and it clicked for me. Like I'm like, who's my 70? And it's like your church. I'm like, right. Like I'm like, do I know 70 people? But I do, and those are the people who they pray for you. They stop by randomly and give you cornbread or
Yeah.
lentejas or jarabe when you're sick, kind of a thing. There's a
And you
type
see
of
them
people.
once a week.
Yeah, yeah, and you see them
least.
once a week
Yeah.
at least. But like that's a good point. Like if you're seeing them at least once a week, right? How much more should you be connecting and engaging with those people who give you life in a very direct sense? Because it's like, oh, we know while you're isolated in your room, like don't do that. Like we're acknowledging that's not a good place to be. And then how much more should you also then even be connecting with those 12, the
Yeah.
people who spur you on and also like pour into you in a different capacity than
Yeah.
the 70 do. But it's like often work or other things can be distractions. And I bumped into an instance today where like I was just talking to somebody and it cut the time between my wife and I a little, and it taught me a very valuable lesson. Like Jesus did not give his time away to everybody in the world. He knew that he
Yeah.
was going to be leaving soon, right?
Yep.
He had a limited time to be able to do his ministry. So unfortunately, he had to focus in on a core group of those people nearest and dearest to his heart, knowing that they would then in turn
Yep.
go out and do the rest of the work, right?
And multiply it, yeah.
Precisely. And also, even just the reliance and the knowing of the fact that the Holy Spirit would be there to be able to even counsel in the places where certain people couldn't reach,
Mhm.
right? But this is to say that, like, when that instance happened, I immediately thought to myself, I'm giving away this valuable time, and I'm kind of wishing I had it back a little. And God is just like in my heart saying, "Good. I'm glad you noticed that."
Yeah.
Because if you know how to cherish what I've given you, you are a good steward of
Mhm.
those relationships that are supposed to pour into you. And in turn and in time, when you are in your hardest moments, they will not squander away that time where they need you the most or
Mhm.
where you need them the most.
Mhm. So now to kind of move on to the 12, like what were the 12 to Jesus? Those were his chosen disciples.
Yeah.
So that can be outside of like let's say your core group. These are people who have like you share your life with them and you
Mm-hmm.
have like a shared mission
Mm-hmm.
with them, right? And so this could be a small group, a family, a close circle of friends, but basically you're practicing a symbiotic relationship of discipleship.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're keeping each other accountable. You're making sure that you're all going to that same mission, that same vision, whatever it may be. And it's a big enough group that like you're not going to be as intimate and as vulnerable maybe as in your core group,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still that level of intimacy and vulnerability that we need on a slightly bigger like scale, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um and in Jesus' time, like that was his consistent community as well. He traveled with them, he ministered to them, and they learned together with each other,
Mm-hmm.
those 12.
Mm-hmm.
And they did life together too. And I'm sure that some of them were closer again to some of the disciples and other disciples.
Yeah.
I think it's just hard to be close to 12 people. You can't have that vulnerability and intimacy.
Not always, honestly, and that's often why, like in small groups, 5 can feel like even a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like a good cutoff kind of thing.
Yeah.
6, 2, but like when you're getting to 8 or 10, it's harder to be that vulnerable because you're scared of what others
Yeah.
may perceive of you, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, and then the last is basically the 70-ish or so that Jesus sent to prepare the way.
Mm.
This is like the broader community of followers. So this is what you're saying is like church.
Yeah,
Kind of like it could also be your work colleagues, school colleagues. It could be like just the people in your class or something of that nature.
Mm.
It could be just people that you just know in general that you guys all share the same beliefs, same mission, and you're living your faith out alongside each other.
Mm.
Again, it's even a harder level of intimacy. It's not meant for that type of intimacy as the core group,
Yeah.
but it still serves a purpose. It
Yeah.
still serves that social need that we have and that belonging of like we're all in it together. I know like for Elijah, like hearing 7,000 still are there and they haven't bowed down to Baal. That could be this version of like, hey, there's people who have the same mission as you, who have the same beliefs and values as you.
And especially when you're getting persecuted by a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like you have 7K people on your side to stand against that.
Yeah. And then when I was looking into it, it's like this group of people will still give you that sense of belonging, that sense of like acceptance of who you are. And you'll just feel like this is your like big, really big family that you have.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the thing to think about. Like who are your 3 or so, who are your 12 or so, and who are your 70 or so. And do you have those depths of intimacy in all those different groups? And don't confuse those intimacy levels that are not meant for that group. Don't put on the core group that level of intimacy that maybe the 70 need, that which is like basically barely any intimacy, not barely any intimacy, but like not as
Less
much
than.
intimacy or less intimacy. Or don't put on your 12 like the pressures of on your 12 what you should be putting on your core group.
Yeah, because then often what you can do is just kind of like not spend enough time with those core
Yeah.
people. Like kind of lapping back to what I was saying with my dad. Like I spent so much time trying to figure out other things,
Yeah.
spending time with other people that I forgot who my top three were. And then because of that, I lost out.
And the thing is, it's not just that you lost out on time, like you were trying to get something from a big group of people or people that you didn't consider in your core group,
Mm-hmm.
something that they couldn't even offer, only your core group
Yeah,
can offer.
100%.
Your core group can only offer you the things that you need that only the core group can give.
Yeah.
The 12 cannot give that, and the 70 cannot give that, and the same with the 12. Like,
Yeah.
so you have to really intentionally ask yourself, who's your 3, 12, and 70? And then if you don't have that, start figuring out who can that be. I've went through that situation where I felt like I didn't have friends, especially moving here, and I had to slowly build my 3,
Mm.
still building my 12,
Yeah.
still figuring out my 70. Like
Yeah.
it's still hard. And yeah, like both of us in our 3, we both decided like, yeah, our parents are in that.
Hmm.
Like, like that just for us, we are really close to our parents.
Mhm.
And so that could be the case too. It doesn't just have to be friends. It could be
No.
like family or whoever it may be. And obviously we're in that core group for each other.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully this kind of helped as we talk about community. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. Just because you're around people, you may not feel a sense of community.
Mm.
So ask yourself, where is that community that makes me feel like I belong, that
Yeah.
accepts me, that will, you know, share my faith with me, but then also share that walk with me.
Mhm.
And that also they want me there too.
Yeah.
And understanding that like you have to have depths in your community. There's different stages to community. And that just takes time.
Yeah.
But it all starts with just having community with God first,
Straight up.
and then like slowly, working your way to figuring out, again who your core group is, the 12 and the 70.
Yeah. So there's that thing called the genogram,
Mhm.
right? Okay, cool. So essentially that's for you to figure out like family dynamics and like even estranged relationships. It gives you a good idea of where you're at with those individuals. Like sometimes it's difficult to realize that you have trust issues and you don't even want to develop a three because your three have hurt you, betrayed you, right?
Mhm.
One of the 12 betrayed Jesus. Is not uncommon in a world of sin for us to have severed relationships.
Yeah.
But we do have to do the legwork in finding out, can we reestablish certain relationships? Can we build new ones? What's holding us back from looking into new horizons
Mhm.
essentially. And I would even say like use that as a template. I'm sure there's probably already something out there like
Mm.
that. It doesn't come to mind right now, but like the terminology for it. But sit down and ask yourself, like Anam just mentioned, who are my three? Who are my 12?
Yeah.
Are they still developing? Amongst my three, did I ever have any issues? Do I need to convey those issues, like
Yeah.
Matthew 18 kind of a thing? Do I need to resolve some things? Are my parents, were they a part of it? Did they hurt me in any capacity? And now, I feel like isolated in this world. I'm just doing life alone. I would just say stay away from that. Stay
Yeah.
away from the idea of I can do life alone. You can't. And the way that we see that is life gives life.
Yeah.
Like everything in life pours into something else. And use this analogy a million times, but the Dead Sea, it is dead because it doesn't have outlets to give back into or be poured into and then give back into. So if we take nature, revelation in a sense, right, as an example, we too ought to be poured into and pour out.
And I really like what you said where it's yeah, we will be hurt in our community groups.
Hmm.
That is just inevitable.
Yeah.
And we have to do the due diligence of healing from it, learning from the experience, figuring out, what boundaries were crossed, what violations happened, and what can we do on our end to fix it? Maybe what can the person do on their end to fix it? Can that relationship be repaired? If not, um, it's unfortunate, but sometimes you do have to separate from people who were maybe in your core,
Yeah.
your 12, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to leave your 70 and go find another 70.
True.
And all this is to say is that if you're going through that, even that trauma of, you know, trying to befriend people, trying to find your community because you got hurt in community, just keep trying. It was hard for me, but I feel like I needed to keep getting encouraged to try. And it was hard. It was hard to find my three. And I still struggle to be like, is that really my three? I don't know. But I feel like God gave me three. And, I'm still like feeling like, who are my 12? Who are my 70? I don't know yet. It's like as much. But I feel like God's slowly putting people in my life. And I'm starting to put them in those categories. And I feel like it's finally giving me that sense of community in those different depths that, I feel like everyone needs.
Yes, and one thing that you told me earlier today, and I'll just end out with that, is the fact that you're 3, you're 12, you're 70. I was gonna say 7K. Um, they may fluctuate, they may switch
Yeah.
out in different parts of your life.
Depending on the context and everything.
Yeah, because when I was younger, I had somebody.
Yep.
When I was like a little older, that switched out. And
Yep.
now that I'm at a different place in my life, that has also changed.
Yeah.
So don't feel obliged to stick to the people that you think were always supposed to be there for you. Ask God, who is it that's supposed to be there for you now? Because if you're at a place in a cave where you're wishing that you would not be here anymore, there's likely an Elisha out there for you, you know? So yeah.
And a 7,000. Anyways, all this to say, being a safe, resilient, Christ-centered community is essential to live out faith.
Yeah.
To be Christian is to be in community with one another and to live out our faith with one another, because I don't think it's possible to walk this walk without each other.
Not at all.
So yeah, that's basically it. And next week we're going to talk about vision.
Sure.
That's going to be crazy. All right. So I'll see you guys next week.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
Bye.